Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. It is Sunday, September the 27th, the very last day of September. Not the very last day of September, the very last Sunday in the month of September of 2020. And the month of October is just right around the corner. Can you believe that? Well, I'm glad that you joined me this morning for another Bible study as we work our way through the book of Proverbs. I'm really enjoying this study. I hope that you are too. I'm also excited about the fact that this will be, I told you this earlier, but I'm telling you again today, that this will be, Lord willing, the last pre-recorded episode of this Bible study. Hopefully from now on, we'll be able to do this live. And that's the plan beginning next week. Remember, next Sunday, we will be continuing the book of Proverbs. It'll be on Sunday evening because next week we are beginning a Sunday evening assembly again. But it's going to be a little different, of course, than our pre-COVID Sunday evening service. Our Sunday evening service pre-COVID was 6 o'clock in a worship service. Beginning next week, it is going to be 5 o'clock and it is going to be Bible class, kinda, sorta. What I mean by that, of course, is that every individual Bible class will not be meeting, but we will have one Bible class in the auditorium for adults. I'll be teaching that at 5 o'clock. The high school will have a class. The middle school will have a class. The 5th grade will have a class. Grades kindergarten through 4 will have a combined assembly down in the Education Center in the elementary area. And ages 2-year-old through 4-year-old, the preschoolers will also have a combined group activity. So that's going to start next Sunday, 5 o'clock. So I hope most of you can join us live and in person for that Bible study at 5 o'clock next Sunday. But if you can't, we understand, and we are glad that we're going to be able to live stream it. So you can tune in next week, 5 o'clock, for the live stream. Of course, if you're not able to join us at 5 o'clock, you can get on our YouTube channel anytime that you want, and you can check it out anytime that you want after 5 o'clock next Sunday. Okay, now that that is out of the way, how about we jump right into the book of Proverbs? We're at chapter 13, and so if you've got your Old Testaments, Proverbs is where you're at. Chapter 13 is what we're going to take a look at. Let's start in verse 2, okay? I know, I'm not forgetting verse 1. I'm just going to come back to it in just a minute. Let's look at verse 2 through 4, first of all. From the fruit of a man's mouth, he enjoys good, but the desire of the treacherous is violence. The one who guards his mouth preserves his life. The one who opens wide his lips come to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the soul of the diligent is made fat. Okay, let's look at these real quickly individually. Here in verse 2, depending on the translation you have, it uses the idea of eating in a very interesting way here. It uses the imagery of eating to basically express the idea that apt words, appropriate words, knowing when to speak, knowing how to speak, is going to benefit a person in life. Verse 3, similarly, knowing when to be silent is going to bring benefits in life. Knowing when to speak and how to speak will bring benefits in life. Knowing when to be silent will also bring benefits in life. And then verse 4, it's telling us that the diligent will have a full life and his physical needs will always be met. That's what it means at the end of verse 4 when it says the soul of the diligent will be made fat. Normally when we hear be made fat, that's not something that sounds desirable, but understand the imagery here. It just means all your needs will be met. You won't lack for anything. You won't starve. You won't be impoverished. The soul of the diligent will be made fat. On the contrary, opposite that, the first part of verse 4, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. The person who is lazy and not diligent, doesn't work hard, They're going to struggle at life. They're going to want things and be unable to get anything. Now, okay, these principles right here, verses 2 through 4, hard work, apt words, careful in your speech, knowing when to be silent, knowing when to speak, knowing what to say. This is describing a successful life, how to attain satisfaction in life, and now that brings us back to verse 1, though. A wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. If you want to attain the satisfaction of life that's described here in verses 2 through 4, that you're going to enjoy good, verse 2, that you're going to preserve your life, verse 3, and that you're going to be made fat, that is, have all of your needs provided. If you want to attain that kind of satisfaction in life, then the key to that is respecting fatherly advice, respecting wisdom. Wisdom is the only way that you're going to attain that kind of satisfaction in life. If you reject wisdom, then there's going to be consequences. If you reject wisdom, you're not going to be practice self-control. Verse 2 and 3 there, when it's about controlling your speech, knowing when to be silent, knowing what to say, knowing how to say it. All of that has to do with self-control. The same with verse 4 that talks about diligent and not diligent. It's discipline, it's self-control. And if you don't have discipline and if you don't have self-control, you're going to have an empty life. And so the key to finding this kind of satisfaction in life is respecting wisdom, or as it's described in verse 1, fatherly discipline. A wise son accepts fatherly discipline. Okay, look at verse 5. A righteous man hates falsehood, but a wicked man acts disgustingly and shamefully. Righteous people are concerned for the truth. A righteous man hates falsehood. Wherever we see it, righteous people rightly despise lies. When lies are presented to a community, when lies are presented to society, when lies are presented, it is frustrating. It is, it just makes one seethe. It makes righteous people seethe. It makes good people seethe. There is nothing that benefits anyone through lies and deceit. And righteous people are concerned for the truth. They want the truth. And they're not just looking for sensationalism. They're not just looking for furthering their agenda. Righteous, good people are wanting the truth. They don't want a sound bite. They don't want something that they don't just want part of the story and they're not going to draw conclusions. They want the truth. Righteous, good people want the truth. But on the contrary, you got the wicked person at the second part of verse 5 here, who acts disgustingly and shamefully. All they do is promote scandal. They act disgustingly and shamefully. Because look at verse 6. Righteousness guards the one whose way is blameless. That's tied there with verse 5. But the wickedness subverts the sinner. Again, wicked people are subverting people with lies. They're subverting a community with lies. They're stirring up needless strife and scandal with lies and spin. Whereas righteous people, they have a great regard to truth, and that's what what we all ought to be. If we want a community that thrives, if we want a family that thrives, truth has to be paramount. It has to be paramount. All right, look at verse 7. Verses 7 through 11 is really about the ambiguity of riches. Let's read those verses. There is one who pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has great wealth. The ransom of a man's life is his wealth, but the poor hears no rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked goes out. Through insolence comes nothing but strife, but wisdom is with those who receive counsel. Wealth obtained by fraud dwindles, but the one who gathers by labor increases it. Okay, let's take a look at these things. Verse 7, interesting. There's one who pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has great wealth. This is basically saying, son, everything in life isn't always what it appears to be. That's good counsel. And that's true in any number of situations, but it's also true with money. Sometimes people look like they are, they have boatloads of it. And they don't. They are flat broke. They are juggling so much debt. They are up to their ears in it. And they are trying to balance a cruise ship on a broomstick. Everything is so tenuous. But it looks like they have everything, but they don't. They are flat broke. And they are trying to make it look like they have something. And then there are other people, you think they don't have any money. Turns out they got money. They just manage it very well. And so not everything is as it seems in life, and that includes with money. Verse 8, the ransom of a man's life is his wealth, but the poor hears no rebuke. Money does have its downsides. Money has its upsides, and money has its downsides. And one of the downsides of money is that you can be on the receiving end of threats, and people are always gunning for what you got. But when you have no resources, you don't really have to worry about anyone threatening you. Look at, again, the poor hears no rebuke. If you've got the NIV, it says the poor hears no threat. When you don't have any resources, you don't have to worry about it. It's only when you got something that you have to worry about something. So money does have its downsides. I remember when I used to drive my old blue Ford Escort. Some of you remember that car. Hadn't had it in a while, 3 or 4 years now. It was about 23 years old, had over 500,000 miles, and it looked like it was 23 years old and had over 500,000 miles. But you know what? I didn't worry about it. I could go anywhere and I could park it anywhere. I didn't have to worry about it being gone. I didn't have to worry about anybody breaking into that. Nobody was going to break into that. Nobody was going to take that car. It was the most secure car in any parking lot downtown, because nobody's going to say, ooh, I bet that guy has some stuff in his console. Nope. So there are upsides to wealth, there are downsides to wealth, and that's what he's saying here. Look at verse 9. The light of the righteous rejoices, the lamp of the wicked goes out. That is, the life and joy of the righteous person flourishes. The light of the righteous rejoices. Your life just flourishes. If you're kind of setting this in the context of wealth here, and I think we can, it can be placed in the context of the discussion on wealth. You have that in verse 7 and 8. You have wealth in verse 11, and so these two are within that setting, within that context. And so it's to say that it's probably saying that true wealth consists of a pure, righteous life. Wealth is great, but true wealth is found in a pure life, a righteous life. But the lamp of the wicked goes out. Look at verse 11. Wealth obtained by fraud dwindles. That is, those who acquire money without learning the lessons of financial prudence, they won't have that money long. Wealth obtained by fraud dwindles, but the one who gathers it by labor increases it. See, you've got contrasted here, a person who's really worked for it. And the person who's just, they don't get it. They haven't worked for it. You know, I've heard people say before, and I think it's absolutely true, that if you gave every person, I may have told you, I may have used this illustration already, probably did, earlier when Proverbs is talking about money. But if you gave every person $100,000, and after a certain period of time, let's say, I don't know, let's say a year, what you would find is that probably a third of those people will have increased that. Probably a third of those people will be right where they are, and probably about a third of those people will be flat broke. Because some people don't know the lessons of financial prudence. They don't know. They're not interested. And so wealth obtained that way dwindles. It takes financial prudence. But on the contrary, the one who gathers it by labor increases it. Financial prudence is very, very important to succeed in that arena of life. The principles of financial prudence. Okay. Verses 12 through 19 is a hope that is fulfilled. It begins in verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Now, surrounding this whole text is the idea of having one's desires fulfilled. Look at the last part of verse 12 there. But desire fulfilled is a tree of life. And then when you get down in verse 19, it says, desire realized is sweet to the soul. So the whole idea here of having one's desire fulfilled, you know, everyone rejoices to see their hopes and the expectations fulfilled. But look down at verse 19b, the end of it, in other words, you know, the second section of verse 19. So the first part said, desire realized is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination to fools to turn away from evil. The implication here is, if you are a fool, if you reject the way of wisdom, your hopes and dreams will not be fulfilled. They're very unlikely to be fulfilled. If you want your hopes and your dreams fulfilled, and everybody wants that, then the way to have them fulfilled is through wisdom. Listen to wisdom from those who know. It's just, you know, it is fun to talk about hopes and dreams, you know, with your spouse, when you're together. That's a common conversation among people. What are our hopes and dreams together? And if you're those hopes and dreams aren't just automatically fulfilled. That's not how life works. It takes planning. It takes prudence. It takes wisdom. And so that's the point here, that it is a wonderful thing to have hopes and dreams fulfilled, but it doesn't just happen. It requires listening to wisdom. Look at verse 13. The one who despises the word will be in debt to it, but the one who fears the commandment will be rewarded. See there? That's what I'm talking about. Wisdom will help us in the fulfillment of our hopes and dreams. This is saying submission to instruction is essential for success in life. The one who fears the commandment will be rewarded. You want to succeed in life? Submit to wise instruction. If you look down in verse 18, poverty and shame will come to him who neglects discipline, but he who regards reproof will be honored. The person who regards reproof, again, is that person who submits to instruction. I can be rebuked. I can be given constructive criticism. I can be told, hey, listen, I think you did this, and I think that wasn't the best move. If you'll try this, you know, that person, the person who accepts that and opens his heart and his ears and his eyes to that, will be far more likely to have hopes and dreams realized than the person who, in the first part of verse 18, neglects discipline. They're just undisciplined. They don't submit to instruction at all. Look at verse 14 and 15. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life. See, the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life. If you'll listen to wise people, it will bless your life. To turn aside from the snares of death, it will save us from death and destruction if we'll listen to wise counsel. Verse 15, good understanding produces favor. It's prudent to follow good advice. But the way of the treacherous is hard. Every prudent man acts with knowledge. See there? If you're prudent, if you're wise, you're going to act on that. And you're going to be blessed. But a fool displays folly. So again, verses 12 through 19 is all about having our hopes and our dreams fulfilled. And the only way that's going to happen is to open our ears, open our minds, and open our hearts to good counsel and wisdom that's found right here. And it's found on the lips of people who embrace and drink deeply from the wisdom that's found right here. Okay, look down at verse 20 and 21. You want success in life? This is a biggie. 20 and 21. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Adversity pursues sinner, but the righteous will be rewarded with prosperity. These two are tied together. It is simply saying this: choose your companions wisely. If you choose bad companions, you are going to experience unpleasant consequences. As verse 21 says, adversary pursues sinners. Unrighteous people, unwise people, bad companions, adversary just pursues them. Trouble is dogging them constantly. Wow, how does this person always have these things go wrong? Why are they? Well, it's because of the course of life that they choose. They are not the best people in terms of making choices. You want to be wise. You want to have success in life. Walk with wise people, and you want to suffer harm. Into verse 20, be a companion of fools. Have a bunch of nuts for friends. Nuts in the terms of don't listen to wisdom. They pursue. They lack prudence in life skills. Okay, look at verses 22 through 25. This is talking about provisions of the family, the last part of this great chapter. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children, and the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. This is all about providing material needs for descendants. Providing material needs for descendants. A wise person thinks about his family. He's not just so absorbed about himself. A wise person wants to change their family tree if they can. He's going to teach his family. He's going to provide for his family. And you get down to verse 23, and really verse 23 and 25 describe two reasons that a family might be impoverished. Let's take a look at it. Abundant food is in the fallow ground of the poor, but it is swept away by injustice. One reason that people can suffer impoverishment is because injustice in society. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about justice these days, and there should be a lot of talk about justice these days. There should be a lot of talk about justice all the time. Justice is a foundational aspect of God's character. He expects it to be foundational for His people in how they live life. But like any concept that's good, our culture can twist it and pervert it. And I'm afraid that a lot of the cries for justice are in themselves inherently unjust. Sometimes they're based on lies and deceit. Some is legitimate, but this is where it behooves wise people, good people, to listen carefully. Don't be swept up in just emotional claims. Don't be swept away by shouting that doesn't present the whole stories of things. True justice. There's true justice, and there's justice that is fraudulent. And we have to have the wisdom to discern. This is talking about real injustices in this world. And where there is real, genuine, authentic injustice, not just perceived injustices, but real, authentic injustices in this world, it can keep a person from excelling and providing well for their family. That's one reason that a family may be impoverished. Real, authentic injustices. And we need to live in a society that demands that the playing field is level and opportunities are out there. And if you make good choices in life, though you can seize those opportunities. And I think for the most part, and I think everybody around the world recognizes this, that's why they want to come here. Now, this is not by any stretch a perfect nation. We've got plenty of black eyes and open wounds, but overall, generally, the reason people want to come to America from other countries is because we are really the most fair country, and people come here and they can do great things. You know, I was reading about this prominent ophthalmologist. I think I may have mentioned this in an example before. I don't know. Dr. Wang, and you see, you hear his commercials and everything. He's, Harvard, MIT, yada, yada, yada. Well, he came to this country when he was a young boy with, I think, if I remember right, like $50 in his pocket. And he was escaping the violence in China. And he came here, and now he is one of the world's leading ophthalmologists. He's got a graduate degree from MIT in physics or something, laser physics or something like that. And then, of course, an MD. That pretty much only happens in America. And there's stories like that abound. People who came from impoverished conditions, different races, different ethnic groups, and yet they made good decisions in life. And when they make good decisions in life, the system works really hard to reward those people. But where there is real injustice, poverty can prevail. Second reason that families may be impoverished is, it says, the righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the stomach of the wicked is in need. Poverty may result from sin. It may not be from injustice. It may be from sin. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite. The stomach of the wicked is in need. And you look at it. You look at people who are involved in addictions, laziness. Laziness is a sin. I mean, that's been all in the book of Proverbs. We've seen that. We've just seen it in this chapter right here. We've seen it again. Addictions, laziness, financial irresponsibility, all of these things. Poverty can result from that. Not from the system. Sometimes it can result from the system. Sometimes it results from your choices. And that's what verse 25 says. Sometimes the system, verse 23, sometimes your personal choice. And that's what's so great about the book of Proverbs. It's very balanced. It is very balanced. It doesn't blame all poor people for their troubles. Some people think that any time there's a poor person, that person is to blame. No, Proverbs doesn't do that. Sometimes they are not to blame. And that's verse 23. Sometimes they're not to blame. Sometimes the system is to blame. But then at other times, the book of Proverbs makes it clear that people have personal responsibility. And Proverbs does not absolve people of personal responsibility. So isn't it amazing how God balances out things? And we need to be, as people who seek to honor God and reflect God's character in our life, we need to reflect that same balance. We need to understand that, not all cases of poverty are because of personal decisions. There may be circumstances that are legitimately unjust and that need to be dealt with and confronted. But then a lot of times it's the result of personal choices and the lack of personal responsibility. Okay, hey, one more thing. My clock says 30 minutes and 30 seconds, but give me a couple of more minutes, okay? We got one more verse, verse 24. This is still in the context here, verses 21 or 20 through 25 here, which is providing for the family. We've already seen there in verse 22, providing for the material needs. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children. But here what we have in verse 24 is also providing for family includes moral training. And here's what it says. He who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. You know, this verse here, in our day, this verse creates concern for many. He who withholds his rod hates his son. They'll say that almost sounds like corporal punishment. Well, if it sounds like corporal punishment, it's because it is corporal punishment. It is what we would call a spanking. And I know that spanking is out of vogue. I know that. Unfortunately, it is out of vogue. That a great percentage of the modern generation raising kids now have been taught that corporal punishment is detrimental to the emotional well-being and development of a child. And they will have all the Harvard PhDs and Yale PhDs to prove that. Listen, they're wrong. Just like most of the Harvard PhDs in the biology department are wrong about who created the world. They say nothing created the world. It just happened life sprang from non-life. They say, God says otherwise. Corporal punishment is an appropriate form of discipline when it is done appropriately. In fact, this won't be the last time you'll see this in the book of Proverbs. Take a look at 22:15. We're going to have to do this super quick. I said, give me 2 minutes. Okay, it's going to go a little longer than that. 22:15. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of discipline will remove it far from him. There's the rod of discipline again. Look at chapter 23 and verse 13. Do not hold back discipline from the child, although you strike him with a rod, he will not die. You shall strike him with a rod and rescue his soul from Sheol, from the grave. Look at chapter 29 and verse 15. Chapter 29 and verse 15. The rod of reproof give wisdom, but a child who gets his own way brings shame to his mother. Over and over again, you'll find this principle in the book of Proverbs. You know, usually though in the book of Proverbs, I'll admit that discipline is associated with some type of rebuke or an instruction, a period of instruction. But here in these other places you've seen, it is also associated with corporal punishment. This is especially important for younger children. And no, this is not, spanking is not child abuse. If it were, God would not endorse it. It's not brutalizing. A child can be brutalized and a child can be abused. And that's not what this is. This is the thoughtful application, the controlled, thoughtful application of limited pain for training purposes. The fact of the matter is pain is a great teacher. And the fear of pain has a great potential to shape people. That's just the way life has been designed. You know, the child who touches something that's hot, or the adult who touches something that's hot, learns very quickly, oh, I don't want to touch that. the child who pulls the dog's tail and gets snapped at and learns, okay, I don't want to do that again. So what we're talking about here is the thoughtful application. It's not associated, proper spanking is not associated with uncontrolled, angry outbursts. Parents who spank properly are very thoughtful in their decision. It's not just an uncontrolled, angry outburst. They're thoughtful about it. Their anger is under control. And what they're doing is they're thoughtfully applying enough pain to train. I'd rather my kids learn from the application of pain that I can manage and that I can control. That way, if they learn from the pain that I'm able to dole out in manageable, controlled increments, then it will prevent them from having to learn when life deals out a lot more pain to them. Look, they're either going to be trained through manageable, controlled pain, or they're going to learn from enormous pain, because life will inflict it on you. And so the person who's trying to provide for his family is not only providing for them financially, all of their needs, taking care of all of their basic needs, but also providing for their moral instruction and development. And that's what verse 24 is about. Okay. Well, that ends chapter 13. Thanks again for tuning in for this Bible study. Hopefully I'll see you next week at 5 o'clock in the auditorium. Look, if you can't get out, we understand. If you're not comfortable yet, we certainly honor and respect that. And so tune in at 5. It'll be live streamed. If you can't tune in at 5, then you can just get on, as I said earlier, our YouTube channel and check it out whenever you want after next Sunday. Well, hope to see you soon. Take care. God bless.